Hello, my name is Ivy and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Are you fucking kidding me? Take two. I am so glad you're here. This video is actually semi-impromptu in that I didn't really ever think I would make this particular video, but I was just doing a anonymous Ask Me Anything on my Instagram page. And one of the questions that came up was, how many palettes do you have? How many singles? I didn't know how many singles I had and I had no intent on counting them, but I did count my palettes. And what I discovered is that I believe I have, unless I miscounted, which is very possible because I am terrible at math, I have about 46 larger form palettes right now. That actually does not include what I would call my mini palettes, which I keep separately, and I might do a separate video on that at some point. But what I discovered is that a lot of you guys are super nosy, I guess the same way that I am, about people's makeup collections, and that a few of you really wanted to see what my palette collection looks like. I am going to just kind of like talk through my makeup collection, show you my large form palettes. I actually did a decluttering recently, so it's like at a, good manageable number for me. Although, like I said, I do have 46 palettes. That number's scary to me. It just sounds like a big number. I know some of you have hundreds of palettes, some of you have two, some of you have something in the middle. I will say my collection feels manageable for me right now, which is great, and I like keeping my number probably around that 50 mark or less. As I continue to use some of the newer palettes to me and see how they perform, I might declutter some more. There's some things in here that I just definitely haven't used in a while and that I want to pull back out. And I have some palettes that are on their way to me, so I think I will pretty soon be at that kind of like 50-ish palettes mark. Again, feels like a lot to me to talk about that. But yeah, I'm just gonna basically show you what I have. Let's get into it. It's gonna be fun. Stick around if you're curious about what my palette collection looks like. All right, I did not order these in any particular way, although in my little box that I keep everything, maybe I'll put up a picture of the box on the screen. I'll take a picture of it. I have them more or less organized by brand. I think as we go through, it's gonna be brand by brand. But let's start with Pat Mcgrath. Now, I've actually had more Pat Mcgrath palettes than this previously. I have decluttered two of them that just felt like they weren't getting used. I think like many of you in the makeup community have kind of mixed feelings on Pat Mcgrath as of late. I haven't purchased anything from that brand in quite some time. I was gifted a number of products in a gift set last year that I have, but I haven't actually bought anything from Pat Mcgrath with my own money in what feels like a very long time. I just have not been interested in what she is selling. It's very pinks, all the time pinks. That's just not my vibe. So anyway, I'm gonna share with you the motherships that I do have, and then I have two palettes from holiday collections past. I think I have three motherships right now, and again, this is just my large form palettes. These are not my minis. I do have a number of minis. Like I said, maybe I'll do a separate video on those at some point. But okay, so this is Mothership 3 Subversive. It was actually the last one. And you know what? These might be a little difficult because they don't bend back with the mirror to show you without some reflection. So just be patient with me. But yeah, so this is Mothership 3 Subversive. It is one of the early motherships and color stories from the brand. This palette was on my wish list for a very long time. I was super intrigued by the special shades in this one. Don't remember any of the names in these palettes, so I'm just gonna call them like the blurple shade and the pretty iridescent shade, whatever you want to call them. I really was into this like gold, like kind of grungy gold shade. So yeah, I had this one on my wish list for a long time. I really wanted Subversive. Finally picked it up, and it is beautiful. I think it's a really fun and cool palette, and there are certain shades in here that I just know there are times that I'm gonna wanna reach for them. And I have been toying with the idea of following in Haute Mess Tom's steps and perhaps repanning or depanning these palettes. It does scare me a little. I don't know why. I watched them do it and it didn't look that hard. And I don't care about the matte shades in these palettes, but I haven't decided if I want to take that step. But it would be to basically like isolate certain shades from this palette that I really like and know I want to use from the rest of them that maybe won't get as much use. The next one that I have is the second Pat McGrath palette that I got. This is Mothership. Oh my God, did a pan? Did you see it? A pan just fell out. Dude, a pan just fell out of this motherfucker. What the hell? Okay, well, I guess this is a single now. Maybe that's a sign that I should depan these palettes. I don't know. Seems like it. Well, anyway, I'm gonna try and show it to you again. But this is Midnight Sun, Mothership 4, maybe? I'm not sure. I'll try and hold it so that it's like not gonna fall out. This is a really cool color story as well. I just love the warm and cool tones mixture. I love this like olivey green and this like, again, the blurple shade, I'll call it. And it has some really, really beautiful baked special shades in it. This orangey copper is so gorge and I really, really love that shade. And then this is the very first Mothership that I purchased. This is Bronze Seduction Mothership 5. By far my most used and most favorite Pat McGrath palette that I've ever purchased. I think that a lot of people feel that way about this palette. This particular, these two shades are unparalleled, and honestly, with all the indie shadows that I have, still very unique in my collection. And this red, this shimmery red, is killer. So beautiful. It is like a go-to shimmery red for me. I love this palette. Even if I declutter or unpan or depan whatever the other Pat McGrath palettes that I have, like this one is staying intact. I just love it. Let's put away the Pat McGrath Motherships. And let's talk about the two holiday collection palettes that I have. This one is the first holiday collection palette that I got. Now, I don't remember what this is called. Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity. This is in the sort of like cheaper cardboardy packaging. Has none of the sort of flair and heft and luxury feeling of the Motherships. That's why it's a lot less expensive, even though you get obviously a lot more colors. The pans are smaller. It's a totally different format, and I can't remember if this was the first holiday collection she came out with or like the second. But I did think that the color story was interesting, although the more that I've kept this palette and the more that I've sort of developed what my makeup style is, because I did get this a while ago, the more I'm like, I don't know if this is really my vibe anymore, or if I think it's a very good palette, because to be honest, I don't think it's the best palette. This is like one of those things that's kind of on the chopping block for me, but there are a few shades in it that I think are really beautiful. This kind of pinky magenta in the middle here is really beautiful. I would say it's very mid. I'm glad that I did not pay full price for it because it's just middle of the road. I felt much better about the second holiday palette that I picked up, which is called Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey. Tell me if that's a different name than the one that I just said, because I swear they're the same. This palette has much more of the panache, I would say, of your typical Pat McGrath palette. It's not a Mothership. It's not quite as weighted. It's still less expensive. It's still circle pans, but they implemented that sort of like black lacquer on the inside. This one, again, it's kind of a weird color story. It's just like a lot of color options in it. I love both this green and this like kind of turquoisey blue green. I love this very shimmery like lilac-y purple here. That is beautiful. But I would say that both of the holiday palettes might be on the chopping block at some point for me. They're kind of like, they're both kind of mid. I mean, there's some standout shades in it, but overall it's clear that holiday time is kind of just like a cash grab for the brand, and I don't think that they put a ton of effort into it. They're just kind of like, people are gonna buy it, it's holiday, so like let's put something out. Let's get into my fantasy Cosmetica palettes. 3 fantasy Cosmetica palettes. I'm going to talk about the first one that I got, although I just recently repurchased it because the brand redid all of their packaging designs recently. I loved the new packaging designs. I thought they were such a step up from the original, and they are also now magnetic pans, so I was like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. So I repurchased Rogue. This is one of my favorite color stories from the brand. I think it is absolutely beautiful. It's such a gorgeous take on like cool toned, moody kind of blue, purple, blurple style. And I feel like I'm always able to do a really fun and impactful look with these colors together. This shade, Sleight of Hand, is absolutely one of my favorite eyeshadow shades of all time. And Rogue as a palette, I think hangs together super duper well. Then I picked up Fighter. Fighter is the newest release from the brand, and this was their entry into more neutral territory. So a lot of shades that I feel like will be really appealing for quite a large audience. This one gives you, you know, more of those like brownie kind of taupes, but then it gives you that beautiful matte mustard shade, and the shimmers in this are really beautiful. I actually love this shade right in the middle. What's it called? Might. Might is very pretty. It is like this eggplant with gold sparkle running through it. It's really beautiful. This is like a great little neutrals palette. I think they came out with it at the right time. And then the newest and my most favorite is one of their older palettes that they re-released again with their new packaging, and it's the Druid palette. I love this palette. I'm obsessed. This is my perfect ideal color story. I think it's amazing. It is like the woodland kind of, you know, fantasy that I live for every single day. It is just the perfect match of matte, neutral, kind of, you know, again, woody colors with these really beautiful, impactful shimmers. Serenity, this green is, oh, it is so pretty. Those are my Fantasy Cosmetica palettes. They have a few more that I have not picked up, probably won't pick up, but I am definitely keeping an eye on whatever they do for new releases. This is my Dawn of the Fall palette. I recently talked about this a bunch just because the brand, it's Bel Cosmetics. They just came out with a new palette that I did decide to pick up. I don't have it yet. I think it's called Pixie Grove, and it looked beautiful and I'm really excited about it. So it reminded me that I wanted to pull out this palette for fall. This is an all shimmer palette. They do not make this palette anymore. It is stunning. It is beautiful. I have found the one thing I'll say, well, two things. One is that it did come to me with this shade Riverside already unfortunately smashed up. I was able to repress it enough and kind of maintain most of the pigment that I just decided to live with it and not do anything about it, and the rest of the shades came fine. When I use my fingers, some of these apply better than others. I've had a little tiny bit of hard panning on like Deep Forest up here, this multi-chrome, but there's just so many beautiful shades in this palette that I don't care. I love it. I use it a lot, and it's definitely, as the name would ascribe, like a go-to fall palette for me. It's a fun one. This palette is from Copacetic Cosmetics, and it is in collaboration with my friend Elise, Panda Replay. A lot of you, I'm sure, know her. This palette, I can't remember when it came out, but I was definitely so excited for it as soon as it came out. I just wanted to support Elise, and I thought that the color story was really beautiful. It is this gorgeous all book-inspired palette. It is living in that purple blue space with the hits of green. It is stunning. I'm really excited about pulling out Addie again. This is a gorgeous purple, and Zora is a beautiful periwinkle blue. There's a lot of like fun shades in this palette. Sci-Fi is a fantastic green. Panda Replay, Elise, wonderful creator, and I just was really excited to support her. Okay, so then I have a few Flower Beauty Lights palettes. Now, one of them, Jungle Lights, I actually just repanned into single pans so that I could have it as part of my singles collection. And I am going to be doing that with the rest of these palettes. I haven't decided if I'm gonna just go for it or if I'm gonna make a video about the two new ones before I do it. But the other one that I have that I haven't repanned yet is called Desert Lights. This is a palette that I picked up quite a while ago. I would say that the Lights palettes are like the closest drugstore, they're like the closest drugstore version of like Looksy Beauty. Now, Looksy Beauty shades are very affordable as far as indie makeup singles go, and I know a lot of people feel a lot of ways about them. I would say that the formula of these is very close to modern day Looksy Beauty formula. Like if there's any direct comparison, I think that's how I would compare them. These are very squidgy, they're extremely foily, they're like ultra metallic, and I love this formula, so I picked up the rest of the palettes that just came out. The new one, Coastal Lights, it definitely veers a little more sheeny than metallic. As you can see, they're playing very much in that pastel realm, and so some of these shades are sparkly, but some of them are way more pearlescent or sheeny. There's a lot more of the traditional metallic and sparkle in this palette, which is the Garden Lights palette, and this is the other new one that came out, and this is my favorite. I think that the collection of shades in this palette is really, really nicely done, and I think that the formulas are what I've kind of come to expect. I like the formula and I like the shades. I have one Kaleidos Makeup palette. This is the Escape Pod. I have a love-hate relationship with this palette. I have thought about decluttering it many times and I still have it. So I'm just gonna show it to you upside down here. As you can see, it is quite an unusual, vibrant color story, and that's really cool. It's cool that the brand did this. I don't see them doing a lot of this right now in their current day. So I love that it is like a very unusual and fun, bright color story. The flip side of that is that I don't find myself reaching for it all that often. There are beautiful shades in here, but there's also just a part of me that feels like every time I look at it, I don't know what to do, and it makes it feel a little more unapproachable for me. I've continued to hold on to it. It has like a special place in my heart, but I also it's like boxy and it's like very thick, somewhat annoying, but it's also really cool. So it hangs around. This is the Wicked Widow Beauty Tea Time palette. I actually have a whole video on this palette that I go into detail on the shades and do swatches and talk about my thoughts. I will link it below. I have also thought about decluttering this palette since I got it. There's like one shade in it that I really, really want to keep though, so I haven't done that. Unfortunately, it's not magnetic palette, so I can't just take that shade out without repanning it. I just don't really feel like doing that. So the palette sticks around. I also think that the artwork on it is kind of cute. Okay, I'm gonna start speeding along. We got a lot to talk about. Okay, next we have Oden's Eye. I have a few palettes from Oden's Eye. I like Oden's Eye formulas. I have not tried any of the singles. I'm not like a big collector of theirs, so I don't have all of their palettes. I really wish I'd picked up their Christmas palettes that were limited edition last year. I didn't, and I missed the boat on that one. But I do have a few, and I like the palettes that I have. My favorite is the Sea Talk palette, which I didn't expect to be my favorite, but this is the one that they did in collaboration with Lauren May Beauty. I absolutely adore this color story. When I went on vacation, I only took one palette, and it was this one. I've just fallen in love with it. It's hard to explain. Like, it was just a weird love story where I saw it when it was first released, didn't think I was gonna like it, ended up being obsessed with it and doing so many both neutral and colorful looks with it. I find that it's a great, well-curated palette. When these two palettes were released, I absolutely had to get both of them. They are the Stone and Rock and Jewels and Gems palettes. Admittedly, since I got them, I haven't actually used them that much. Heard mixed things from people having some issues with these palettes. I don't think I've played with them enough to really be able to speak to that. I haven't had trouble with what I've used so far, but I haven't used them that much. So this is the Jewels and Gems palette. Beautiful mauve-y, purple based kind of grungy fall color story. These were released in the summer. A lot of people were like, these are very fall. Weird that you would release them in the summer, but I thought it was cool because I liked them. And then this is the more brown, green, tinted color story in the Stone and Rock palette. I love it. I love these colors. I think that they're well curated palettes. My big beef was that I feel like the packaging doesn't go with the vibes of the color stories at all. This is the Hella palette. This was another limited edition collaboration with Angelica Nyquist. I, again, fell in love with this color story. I just loved the kind of grungy, earthy greens mixed with those vibrant pinks, even though I don't wear pink a lot. And then these really dark kind of neutrals at the bottom are super fun. There's a lot of shades in here that I reach for all the time that I reuse constantly. I've kept hold of this in my collection. And then the last one is up for decluttering. It was part of the Easter surprise box that I received from them. And so I didn't pick it out. It was in the box. Like I didn't choose it. It is very pretty. You know, it's like purples, browns, a little bit of gold, orange up at the top, but it's just fine. It's fine. There's a couple of shades in here that are really pretty. I have had a little bit of hard panning with some of them. It's not getting a ton of use from me, so this is up for potentially being chopped, but I do have it at the moment, so there we go. This is the Jason Wu Floor 25 palette. I'd say 2/3 are matte and then 1/3 are these shimmery shades. I use this almost exclusively for the mattes. I really do use these mattes. I find that they get a lot of use from me, and that having them in this grouping is really helpful. However, since I got my Viseart Matte Neutrals mini palette, this is also up for potentially being decluttered just because I reach for that more than I reach for this. I prefer the Viseart formula, but this is a pretty good buy. I feel like the Jason Wu palette is not that expensive. I'm pretty sure that it's a lot less expensive than the Viseart one. So if you're in the market for this kind of matte color story and you want to throw some shimmers in, the Floor 25 palette is not bad. Let's take a minute, just a minute, to talk about Colourpop. Over the years, I've definitely had a decent amount of Colourpop in my collection. At this point, I have decluttered 90% of my Colourpop. Not because all of it was bad. I just decided I was redundant. I didn't need it. I'd moved on from the formulas. I'd found something better. But I still have these two Star Wars mini palettes from them. I have the Child and the Mandalorian palette. I just can't get rid of them. I just really, really like them. This is the Child palette. The color story in it is again kind of in that like woodland green brown vibe. I think it's just so cute. It's just so cute. Look at him, he's so cute. I do really like this color story, and I actually think that the formulas am I cursed? Did you guys just see that just happened? I need to take a minute. If this isn't the universe like telling me to declutter some more of Colourpop, then I don't know what is. Okay, well, anyway, maybe this will go away now, but I currently have the Star Wars, the Child palette, and then I'm afraid to show you this one now, but this is the Mandalorian palette. This is more of a neutral color story. It's actually extremely reminiscent, you might say, of the Fighter palette, which I just showed you from Fantasy Cosmetica. Now that I'm looking at it and I am comparing it to the Fantasy Cosmetica one, I would say this is up for decluttering as well, because they are fairly redundant color stories while not exactly the same. The Fantasy Cosmetica palette is heads and tails above this one, so this could be going as well. These are both Revlon eyeshadow palettes. I really like both of them. I actually have a number of Revlon mini eyeshadow palettes that I've also held on to for quite a long time. And both of these I think were limited edition palettes, so I've held on to them and I do like keeping them around. This one is in collaboration with the Wonder Woman movie. What was it? Wonder Woman 84. I did not see the movie, but I thought that the palette was fun. It's kind of a mix of brights and neutrals. The formulas in these are actually really not bad. I have found the formulation in their eyeshadows to be fairly consistent. Like what's a metallic is a metallic, a shimmer, a sparkle, a sparkle, just like reliably decent eyeshadow formulas. And then this one is in collaboration with Megan Thee Stallion. This is the Big Bad palette. Let's go, Megan. And I really liked the shades in this one as well. This is like such a fall-y quad, and you can go really light and natural with this palette. You can also go big, bad, and smoky, and there's like a really pretty shimmery black in this as well that is just super fun to play with. They've made it through a few declutters, and I don't think that they're going anywhere anytime soon. They're just fun. Like, I'd be curious to hear from you if you've tried any of the Revlon eyeshadow palettes in the past and what sticks out to you, but I have found them to be surprisingly good. Next, I have two of the large form Viseart palettes. I keep the minis that I have separately, but I have two of the bigger ones, and this is the Dark Mattes Edit, which I reach for and use all the time. I use this all the time. The perfect palette to help build a look. I do a lot of smoky looks, so this comes in handy quite a bit. And then the next one is the Brights Edit. This one I really just felt like, even though I knew I wasn't going to use it all the time, would very much help me build looks and would be a really great accompaniment for when I want to use colorful shimmer and sparkly shades. I just didn't have anything in this category. And Viseart's big palettes and their minis are all magnetic, removable, customizable. I could mix this with my Cleona shades. I could take them out and make a singles palette. Like, that's what makes it super great for me as an investment. I always say I recommend Viseart for their mattes. I think they're great. I did pick up 2 of the Cosmic Brushes palettes that were released over the last year. This is Muse, and then this is Serenity. I think Serenity was released before Muse, and I have been super impressed with these palettes. I've talked a bit about them on here and on Instagram. This is the Muse Color Story. I mean, it is beautiful. It is really beautiful. It's 24 pan Color Story, same for Serenity, another big palette. And this one's a little bit brighter and a little bit more purple blue, and the other one's a little more like purple pink brown. And then there's this random orange in here. Don't ask me why, but there's a random orange in there. The quality of these palettes is really good. I think that they're well designed, and I've been pretty impressed with the eyeshadow formula given the price. And these are UK based, so if you are in the US or outside of the UK, you do pay a bit more for shipping, but it's not so bad that it makes it like unapproachable. So I have really been liking these palettes a lot. Keep it going, keep it going, let's keep it going. Another 2 up. We have 2 palettes from Pacifica. This is, I guess you would call it a drugstore brand, although I'm guessing a lot of drugstores don't carry them, but it's like you can find it at Target, you can find it at Ulta. I believe they qualify as a drugstore brand. I have this one, which is called Animal Magic. I really, really love the Animal Magic color story. All of these shades are really user-friendly, easy, a number of beautiful mattes, etc. I find that Pacifica eyeshadows perform generally well. I wouldn't go to them for like really vibrant, bright editorial shades. Like some of these shades didn't, this is the other one I have, Stellar Gaze. Like some of these brights I was hoping to perform a bit better than they did, but overall it's a passable palette, and this one's really pretty and cute too. I just thought that the mixture of shades in this one was fun. I don't love the split pans in this one because they're very small and it is very difficult to keep the shades isolated. It's cute aesthetically, it's just not super user-friendly. Both of these are passable. If I had to recommend one, I would definitely recommend Animal Magic. I think that Stellar Gaze is cute, but it's not quite as above, quality wise as I've found Animal Magic to be. Drugstore prices, you get a lot for your money here. Let's talk about Natasha Denona. I have a few palettes from Natasha Denona. I don't have a ton. I love what I have. I really, really like what I have. The first palette that I ever got from her was the bronze palette, which is kind of a weird one because, I don't know, I mean, I do really like it and I do really use it, but like the fact that it's the first color story that I got from her is a little strange just because it's very bronzy. As the name would suggest. I actually love the cool toned shades in this palette. I think that the addition of those, for whatever reason, is what sold me on this palette. As per usual, the formulas are really good. The shimmers in here are really good. The mattes in here are very buttery and blendable, and there are a couple of those like cream to powder shades in here, which I do like from her. So this was my first pickup from the brand, and then I knew this was on my wish list for a long time that I really wanted to get Biba. Biba is an expensive palette. This is the cover, but it is also probably one of my most used palettes in my collection. Biba is, like, for me, this is the ultimate neutrals palette. It has the perfect combination of warm and cool shades. It is more matte focused than anything else. There are some shimmer satin shades in here, nothing super glittery, but this is such a great look builder. It is one of my most reliable palettes, and I just use it all the time, and I love Biba. And then nothing was like super calling out to me from the brand until the Yucca palette. This came out, and like every other internet girly, I was like, speaking to me. I love it. And I do. I love this palette. It's such a beautiful, like, cactus, mustard, grungy, fun color story. And there are some really, really, really beautiful shimmers in here. Plantasia, that's the one. Plantasia is one of my favorite shades. Komorebi, which I always want to call kohlrabi, is another really beautiful one. Makia is really beautiful. Camu Camu, this like hot yellow, is gorgeous. I just really live for this palette. I think it's beautiful, and I love the packaging. It's got that soft matte feeling, it's beautiful. And then the newest one that released, it got me. That's the I Need a Nude palette, which has this really kind of fun 3D packaging on the front. And then I know there's a lot of debate about what this is tonally, if it's cool, if it's warm, if it's pink, if it's brown. I don't really care what it is, it's really pretty. On me, it's what I have on my eyes today. It is a cool tone palette on me, despite the fact that it leans rosy. It probably wouldn't on everybody, and it's definitely very like rosy and pink in person, I think more so than some of the photos would have you believe. But it's a beautiful palette. I said this on Instagram. I think it does one look, but it does it really well. And so if you're into that look, I think this is like a great everyday palette. I think it's a solid release from the brand. So that is all of the palettes that I have at present from Natasha Denona. I don't know how many of you have heard of this brand. This is the brand called Claropsyche or Claropsyche. I actually don't know which it is. A smaller like indie brand. And I have the Psyche's box, which is the first palette that the brand came out with, and then Real Fantasy, which came out later. Both of these I've considered decluttering. They've made it through a few declutters. This is all just matte pastel shades. You can see it feels very art boxy. Almost never use this one, but I always keep it around because I'm like, but it's really, really pretty for these light pastel shades. I don't truly have accounted for anywhere else. So if I wanted to do a very like light watercolory pastel look, this is what I would reach for. Real Fantasy is totally different. This is like a vibrant, jazzy rainbow color story. The color story is whatever. It's like I said, it's like a jazzy rainbow, but there are a few shades in here that are really stand out. I think it's called, Amethyst. This shade, this iridescent purple, is really, really, really pretty. And when I have done looks with some of the shades in this palette, people will ask me what I'm wearing and where it's from. So I have kept it around because I keep wanting to make sure that I have them in case I want to use them, even though I don't use them a lot. Like Alien is another one of those shades that is really, really great. My Fun Guy palette, this was a gift and I love it. I posted a funny video about this palette when it was released, and it got some traction on TikTok, and by some traction I mean like very little, but my husband saw that video that I posted and he got me this palette because they're in the shape of little mushrooms. It's so cute. It's so cute. And it's like a very me color story. It's like a micro version of some of the other color stories that I love. Woodland vibes, mushroom vibes. It's made with infused mushroom extract, whatever. It's fun, it's cute. It is really just, it's so cute. I just love it. It's not going anywhere. It's a great little palette. And the Balm has pretty good formulas. I don't like frequently buy from them anymore, but they actually have very solid, dependable formulas, and their eyeshadows are great. So this is the Fun Guy palette. Okay, I know a lot of you haven't seen this in a while. I haven't picked it up in a while, but I find that I do looks that are reminiscent of this color story with other palettes all the time. It's like in my head all the time. This is the Isamaya Beauty Industrial Color Pigments palette, the original one that was released. Packaging, as you can see, is a very interesting and unique. One of my favorite color stories, probably of all time. I mean, when I saw this come out, I was just like, this was made for me. It's beautiful. I love it. I love how grungy and sparkly and muted and fun and weird all at the same time this is. Like many of you, I have experienced some hard panning on some of the shades. Hasn't really deterred me from using it, and I just think that this is a really cool and interesting palette that is not going anywhere in my collection. I have no designs on purchasing anything from Isamaya Beauty in the future, but this definitely secured its place in my collection, and I love it, and it's not going anywhere. It's a cool, fun, unique palette. Just because I don't align with the brand now moving forward doesn't mean that I have to get rid of something that I do like and enjoy. Ather Beauty. Ather Beauty doesn't exist anymore. They recently announced that they were going out of business. I think probably at this point, maybe they are done. Have kept 2 palettes from the brand, and one I actually picked up during their closing sale. So it was at a very big discount. And that is, I don't know what this is, like Moonlight Crystal or something. It's this blue, purple, green color story. I have again, I haven't played around with this much since I picked it up. This might be something that I gift to someone else, just because while I got it at a huge discount, I'm realizing that it's just not getting a lot of use for me. But the formulas are beautiful. Ather Beauty did do a good job formulating things before they went away. I think I just have a soft spot for this palette. It's the Joshua Tree one, and it's all matte shades. Admittedly, again, not reaching for this very often since I got my Viseart mattes. So this is something that I kind of kept around until now, when I'm thinking, okay, maybe at this point I have something else that I prefer. But I've always liked this palette, and I've always thought it was really cool, and I just liked the combination of the muted earthy matte rainbow that it provided. They're here, we'll see. For now. Okay, you're at our final grouping of palettes, and it's my Shroud palettes, and I have a whole video dedicated to Shroud, which I will also link below. However, at the time of filming that video, there were a few palettes that I didn't have, so there's more in the Shroud collection now. I love Shroud. I love Shroud. I love Shroud eyeshadows. I love the color stories that they've come up with. I think they keep getting better and better with their formulas. I find that their palettes are palettes that I reach for frequently and are beautiful, and I love them. End of story. So the original 3 that I have that were in that video are Hollow Bean, which is in collaboration with Betty Jean on YouTube and Instagram. She also did her original collab, It's Freakin' Bats, and the Moonfall palette, which is not with Betty Jean, but was one of their newer releases. All 3 of these palettes are beautiful. I will show them to you very quickly, just because, again, I've done a video on these before. This is It's Freakin' Bats, which I use these often in color stories that I come up with. They're beautiful. These are magnetic pans and removable from their palettes, so you can use this packaging to make your own color stories. You can take the singles out. I love that. I love that about the brand. I think that that's one of the best parts about it. And then this is the Moonfall palette, which I think has some of the most beautiful shimmers that you can imagine. I just think that they're gorgeous little like duochrome, multi-chrome shades. They're super fun and beautiful. And then Hollow Bean, this color story just really got me. It's, you know, I know it's a Halloween palette, but like I use this all the time. It's really fun. Every time Betty Jean collabs with them, they do an amazing job. And then I finally picked up both of the Creepy Cute palettes. These are all matte palettes, and I find them to be, again, wonderful mattes, really well formulated, and just, these are great. And same thing, magnetic pans or magnetic packaging, metal pans that you can remove, wonderful packaging that you can reuse again and again and again. So this is Creepy Cute 2. I think this shade Banana Milk, the yellow, is my favorite. I love it. And then this is Creepy Cute 1, which has one of the best matte blacks I have in my collection. It's called Void, and it is really black, like really black. It's fantastic. And then their newest addition is the Peaches and Dreams palette. This is absolutely a beautiful, kind of pastel-y but still bright palette. This shade Succulent, one of my all-time now favorite like green iridescent shades. It's so beautiful. I love all the shades in this palette. I love the packaging. I love everything about it. I think this was like such a fun summer release from the brand, and I just legitimately cannot wait to see what they do next. I think that they have a great future, and I'm here to support them. I love them. I think they do a great job. That is the end of the basket, the bag, the box, whatever's over there, the box. That's the end. That's the end. I did it. I talked through all of those palettes. I hope I tried my best to speed through speaking on all of those without getting too crazy and in depth. But yeah, that is a look at my current palette collection. As I mentioned, there are some things in here that might make their way out, and there are some things that are going to probably make their way in. I am happy to keep you posted on that on Instagram, where I share a lot of more like live snappy content. As of now, this is what we're working with in the palette department. If you're nosy like me, I do hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please definitely give this video a like before you leave it, and subscribe so that you can hang out with me in more future videos. I am here for you all the time, here and on Instagram. So I hope that you have a great rest of your day. I can't wait to talk to you soon, and I will see you in the next video. All right. Bye.